So, I want to talk about your environment and how it plays such a pivotal role in the outcomes of your spell work or your manifestations, whatever, it is that you practice. We underestimate just how impactful our environment can be because oftentimes we think about, our place, our dwelling as just a place, or the people in our dwelling as, these are just my family members. When you start looking at things from a more balanced but spiritual perspective, you will find that everything, of course, as we know, holds energy. But if you are not self governed, if you are not paying attention to your energetic surroundings and what's happening, if you're not protecting yourself spiritually, you can absolutely, basically be infiltrated by these other energies that are around you. So your environment plays an extremely monumental role. Like, do not underestimate your environment when you are doing any sort of spell work. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a story time on this. So many years ago, I was in a relationship with someone who we lived together, but this person was very toxic, just a really toxic spirit. And during that phase in my life, I was more into like manifestation. So I used to call myself a master manifester because prior to this person, I, really had a great ability to, just manifest the things that I wanted, and life was going really well. I had this, plan in place of how things were going to go in my life. And, I'm on the trajectory. So I meet this person, we hit it off. I definitely fell for all of the future faking and the love bombing. Like I fell for it all, y'all. And so long story short, we enter into a relationship, we move in together, so on and so on, right? Well, within about a year, I realized that, things were just kind of off with me. I would still do my, typical like manifestation methods, but for some reason, I wasn't seeing the outcomes. And this is before I started practicing hoodoo. So even like I said, if you are someone who, let's say you're not really into that, and you are someone who, just likes doing the manifestation practices, your environment still plays a role in that. But I would, have my affirmations, I would put things up on my bathroom mirror, like all the things, right? And, this person would constantly just have something very negative to say, or, they would try to like poke fun at it, make jokes about it, even in front of like our friends, family, what I mean? They like would, ha ha ha, she's a master manifester, do things like that. And so over time, that really did start to, kind of hinder my confidence. It started to really make me feel like, okay, am I just crazy? Or, does this stuff really work? I thought it worked, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe I need to be more realistic. And these are things that this person would say is, you need to be more realistic. You need to be more practical, more logical. So fast forward, we're in relationship probably 2 to 3 years now, and I'm not practicing my manifestation practices as much. I'm still doing it here and there. I'm journaling, but it definitely isn't, to the like ritualistic type of nature that it was before. And that really didn't stop this person. Like they just continued. Their energy was honestly very warlock energy, if I'm being very frank. So when I got introduced into hoodoo, right, when I started looking into more of the ancestral practice, and I was like, I just felt super drawn to it. And I just felt super drawn to it. And I started doing research on it and really trying to understand it and reading books and all of that. My eyes opened up to, honestly, the world of magic. So I started to incorporate manifestation and magic together. And in my mind at the time, because I was quite, naive and I didn't really fully understand magic like I do now, at the time I thought, well, this should speed up my manifestations. And spoiler alert, that is not always how it works. Okay. That's not always how it works, especially if you practice hoodoo. But that's what I thought. So in my mind, I'm thinking like all the things that, I wanted for us and I wanted for myself individually or, whatever, like I can start utilizing, hoodoo to help me get those things faster. And if I'm really being honest, one of the things, because I was really hell bent on getting like this person's approval and getting their validation, I used to say things to myself like, well, then, they'll be able to see, like, then they'll know like this is real, like spirituality is a real thing. And, all of that stuff, right? Well, I did start seeing some progress. I did. I started gaining my confidence a little bit more. I started feeling better about myself. But then I noticed that the more I started to get my confidence back and I started to see in smaller ways how, my hoodoo was working, I noticed that there was increased tension between me and this person. There was so much animosity. There was a lot of competition that started to form in the relationship, a lot of jealousy. And it really just got to a point to where it became insufferable. It really became difficult to deal with. So obviously we broke up. And when I tell you guys, when we broke up, within a month after breaking up with this person, moving out, like going about my life, I started seeing back to back to back like outcomes, positive outcomes. And that's really when I doubled down on magic. That's really when I was like, okay, so this person was essentially like their energy was truly blocking and was that roadblock. One of the reasons why we do road openers is because we need to clear the path. And at that time, y'all, I didn't even do a road opener. Like, I didn't know what that was back then. But oftentimes people are afraid to do road openers because they are afraid of what's going to clear, what they're going to have to get rid of, what they have to leave. But I can attest that, yes, it is difficult. And of course, I went through sadness. This was someone that I was with, and we were talking about, building the life and all of that. So yes, there's that moment of sadness and grief of the relationship, but what has transpired after the relationship is so much more and so much better than what I, could have possibly imagined with this person. You can enter into a new relationship. I did. You can still, have your magical practices. I do. You can create and have far more money than, you had with the person. So this, I'm going to specifically speak to my young women who are tying themselves to men for money. Now, I'm not judging what you do. Ladies, get your money how you get your money. Please just do it safely. Please make sure you're always protecting yourself. What I will say is that if you are tying yourself to someone with an energy that is pulling from you and you don't know how to pull your energy back, you don't know how to take their energy and transmute it and make sure that it's working in your favor, you may really want to be very careful about who you align yourself with for the sake of money. There's so many other ways to get it without you having to be depleted energetically, sexually, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, all the LYs, okay? You do not have to be totally depleted for the sake of someone paying your bills, all right? And I'm a firm believer that any woman that is in that type of lifestyle, whether it be, they are selling a cat or if they are sugar babies, or y'all really should be doing magic because y'all need to have protection wards over yourselves. You need to, obviously be working in glamour magic. Like there's so many aspects of magic that can really help you and ensure that, you get the best outcome. But back to the environment conversation. So I shared that little story time with you because it is really important for you to always do an inventory of your environment. If you start feeling like there's energy that is heavy, there are people around you that are, becoming like obsessively negative, or they are trying to kind of play around with your spiritual practice if they know that that's what you do. And that's also another thing, y'all. Y'all really have to stop telling people everything that you do magically. You do not owe anybody an explanation, not even your spouse. Let me say that. Not even your spouse. Like one of my exes had no clue. No clue. And honestly, like we'll never know. And it's because it wasn't his business. Now, that's just my personal opinion. There are some people out here that feel like they're supposed to tell their partners like everything. I'm not one of those people. I absolutely love, discretion. I love privacy. And I think that that's where power is. And that's also where protection is. So, make sure that you are being very mindful and utilizing your discernment with even the people that you live with. If you know that, let's say you don't share the same spiritual belief and this person is very closed-minded, then you may not want to share this side of, your magical practice. It will only create more conflict and problems. So like, why would you do that to yourself? I want you to ask yourself that question. Now, if you're with someone who's very open-minded, even if they don't necessarily practice, but they're willing to support you in your practice, then yeah, of course, that is great energy to connect with and to, share your experiences with. But just really exercise your discernment. Keep your environment clear. Keep it clean. I will tell you, that's another thing too. If you live in a lot of clutter, if you have like a lot of things everywhere and it doesn't really have a place, take some time to really like clean out your space. These are the mundane things that we can do, the kind of practical everyday things that we can do that help us amplify ourselves spiritually or magically. So that's something else that you can do though, to really make sure that you have the environment that is going to be conducive for you to be able to practice magic in a way where you're going to see the outcomes that you're looking for. So watch yourself when it comes down to the people in your environment, the things that are in your environment, and that includes things like paintings, statues, gifts that other people have purchased for you. If you don't feel right with it, if it's not something that's like settling for your energy, it doesn't make you feel good, I would recommend you get rid of it. That's also why, if you are someone with that type of ex that I had mentioned previously, get rid of anything that that person has gotten you. That would be my suggestion to you. Don't hold on to anything that is tied to an energy that is vampiric. Like that, don't do that to yourself. And as you are cleansing, make sure that you are also restoring. So you don't want to just cleanse and then just leave it as a blank slate. You really want to consider cleansing and then restoring, replenishing. So putting that good energy back into your space. You're going to move, to get away from certain people so that you can, really be the powerful magician that you are. Then when you get into that new space, or when you get that new partner, you want to make sure that this is a healthy version, that this is a better version, a protective version of the thing that you discarded. That goes for things like jobs. If you had a job that you knew was toxic and that work environment was just taking a lot out of you, it was taking your life force energy, do not go and replace it with another crappy job, or with another job that you hate, or a job that you had to go get out of desperation, because all it's going to do is just create more of that same experience for you. So I hope that this was helpful for someone. Just like I said, be mindful of your energy when you are performing any sort of working. It really does play a major role in the outcome of your work.